I'm CBS11 Meteorologist Jeff Ray with a special web edition for you for gardeners. I wanted to talk about spring and spring rains now that we're in the season. So first, let me start with a few points here. We've been dry. We've had a little bit under 5 inches of rain at DFW. That's only 60% of normal since we started 2019. The last big rain was almost 100 days ago, back in December, just after Christmas, and currently we're in abnormally dry or moderate drought conditions. You can see the areas in yellow. That's the dry. It does include the Metroplex. It doesn't include the eastern counties, but we're even in drought across parts of Erath County and Hood County, Comanche County as well. You know, the growing season in the Metroplex started 27 days ago. That was the last freeze on March 6th. And if all goes as planned, we should have that first freeze of the season somewhere in late November. The official number is November 22nd. That's the average from the last 30 years. So that'd be 227 days left in the growing season. But here's my third point. It's been 20 days since we've had a rain of 1 inch or more at DFW. So in April, you know, we certainly have a lot of wind, but it's also a lot of storm activity during April. So we should have some rain with those thunderstorms. And keep in mind, for you gardeners, I know you remember this, last April was really cold start. We had some really cold mornings. Well, we're thinking we're going to have a wet spring, and a lot of this has to do with this. An El Nino, a weak El Nino is currently in place. It's been here really since midwinter, and what that does is it makes for a very active southern jet stream, and what that does is makes for some wet weather across the southern third of the U.S. generally. This is the 7-day forecast by the WPC, and they're forecasting some really good rains for our eastern counties, but some of these generous rains could get into the Metroplex as well. So this just goes out for the next week, and I think most of this will actually fall over the weekend on Saturday especially, but the rainfall outlook all the way into mid-April is for some wet conditions over most of the U.S., including Texas, so the chances of a wet mid-April at least are good. But the spring outlook for the state of Texas and the U.S. is pretty good. There's a weak El Nino in place, and 3 or 4 of the El Nino winters have been followed by wet springs, and you can see above normal precipitation is anticipated for just about all of Texas, including this area. The bad news about that is that wet weather is also expected in the Central Plains and Northern Plains, where they have significant flooding going on now and more expected along the Missouri and Mississippi basins. So a little bit of bad news with the possible good news. The good news being that we could have some generous spring rains for you gardeners. The bad news is we could have some flooding risk, and we'll certainly watch the potential problems that could develop in the Trinity or Erasmus basins because of big rains over the next couple of months. Just wanted to bring you up to date on how the rain is looking. If you've got the plants in the ground and wondering how spring is going to go, there's no significant signature as far as temperature for spring, if it's going to be warm or cold, though usually if it's wet, it's usually a little bit on the cool side. Of course, we'll bring you the regular forecast later on today at 4 o'clock. Join us then.